Hello, my name is Charles Frazier and welcome to my garden. Oh, it is beautiful outside. We are enjoying this day already. And as you know, we have been staying home for a lot, working here around the house, working outside. My wife, Miss Vicki, and I have been working endlessly on some projects in regards to our landscape and things, and we have started something that has just continued on and on and on. And we want to share with some of those things with you today, but then also we have some gardening tips that we're going to share out in the garden, and then also we're going to talk about a container that we're very, very excited to start with this year. All right, first thing we're going to talk about some baskets that we have been doing this year. And Mariana came in a couple of weeks ago and started helping us with some of our flowers, as she has been teaching up in Bardstown at Old Kentucky Home Middle School in Bardstown, Kentucky. But she came in to help Mom and Dad in regarding to some of our flower pots. And here's a wicker basket that we have, and I just really like the design of these and the shape of these. But then also, as you look at the flowers that are inside, you know, for years ago, I would put one kind of variety in a flower pot of things. If it was just petunias, I just put one kind of petunias and really wouldn't even change the colors, just one particular color. Or, you know, if it was something else, I would stay a begonia, like this begonia right here. I just only use begonias in there. But something that we have learned is just put a selection of flowers that are in there. As we talked about the begonias that are here, the spike plant. I love the spike plant because it gives kind of a little different dimension for that of the pot. But then also these verbenas. I love the color. We have different colors of verbenas this time, and this one really accents very well. And then also something that is vining. I always like to see something that is vining in the pot. And of course also the brightness of this color just really stands out, and I just kind of like the mixture of colors there. And so whenever you're putting your pots together, just remember you may want to have a mixture of colors because it just brightens your landscape. Also, just kind of continuing on, talking about your flowers in your flower pots and things. Now, there's some factors that you need to be thinking about as well, whether they require a lot of water, less water. You take like a succulent which really now is becoming very popular, and I've been seeing a lot of these in greenhouses and things that selling the succulents, and of course this one here would kind of be in the succulent family. They're very strong. They can handle a lot of heat stress and various things. But then also we find that people, you know, keeping flowers, I mean, it's a full-time job. I mean, it's a daily watering that you have to do, and you also need to be giving to them a dose of Miracle-Gro. I'd say probably once a week you need to be giving a dose of Miracle-Gro to them. Also, if you're wanting something a little bit more on the organic, Super Thrive. That comes in a little bitty bottle. You can find it at most of your garden centers and various places, and it will give you of how much you're supposed to put in a gallon of water. And really, you could probably give a daily dose of Super Thrive, and since it's kind of like an organic kind of substance there, you know, you will be fine. But with those succulents, reason why we want to talk about those succulents for a little bit, like I say, people don't want to water every day, and they plan on trips. You know, usually we'll buy all these flowers, and then it's time for vacation, and then we'll go on vacation for a week, and then when we come back and we find that our flowers are just all withered and dried up, whereas a succulent takes less water. And maybe you can water it well, and it can do well up to, you know, a number of days without watering. So, you know, if you're planning to be doing some visiting and traveling this summer, you know, you might not need to have something that requires a lot of water, like a petunia. Definitely, if you don't water a petunia every day during this season right now, as we're in the 90-degree range now, you're going to have some petunias that are withering and not looking very good at all. Also your ferns as well. But then also, getting back to what we were talking about, some plants are full sun, some plants are partial sun. Some require a lot of water, some require less water. So whenever you're putting these arrangements together, kind of keep that in mind. Of course, now sometimes it's by error on your own. You put these in, you didn't know if they would work or not. Like I've got some plants in different locations. I don't know if they're going to work or not. I'm watching them close, and if they're not going to work, I'm going to move them or I'm going to transplant them. All right, just to kind of give you an idea. But then also just another arrangement. Now we see, you know, the beautiful begonias. This is a begonia here. Here's another variety of a begonia. Then I have a geranium that is stuck in here. And then here's the vine. Like I said, I always like something that is vining. We call this sweet potato vine. Usually we got two different colors of sweet potato vine. This is what I call the purple color. And then also the other is kind of a lime green color. And then over here, some call them dahlias, some call them dolies. We have these growing in the pot as well. Just makes just for a beautiful combination of that of colors. And then down here, as we said, the dahlias or dolies. And then we have this succulent that is growing down the side. And this is a new one. I have never raised this one at all. I kind of ran across this in some of my travels and things, and not only does it's going to vine, but it's got the prettiest little bloom, and that's just kind of an added bonus in dealing with them. But these are very, very hardy, very, very tough, and so definitely in my flower garden I need things that are hardy. I need things that are tough, especially when the long days of hot summer come on and I'm busy out in the garden working. And so we just kind of wanted to show you some more just of what we are doing here. Of course, in our landscape, it is not only about flowers, but we have this water fountain that we have just recently purchased here in our area up near Johnny's Barber Shop. And I love this water fountain. I love sitting out on the porch where we began our show for today and drinking a cup of coffee, looking at the beautiful blooming flowers, and then also hearing the sound of this fountain. And this is quite easily, it's got a little pump that fits in the bottom here, and that pump pumps the water up here through this pipe here. And you know, it's low maintenance, it is easy to put together, and it just kind of just adds to our landscape decorations. And plus it's very soothing to sit here and listen to it. Kind of while we're in this section around the fountain, we also wanted to point out this particular flower here. Now most of the flowers that I showed you in the pots, they are annuals. You know, they're only here for this year. You'll have to plant seeds or get plugs for next year. And so, but this here is a geranium. And it is what we call a New England geranium, and it comes back every year. I don't have to worry about putting this one out. It maintains all winter long. In fact, it will maintain its color throughout the winter months. It will be green. Now, not as much foliage as you see right here. It'll reduce down to about 1/3 of this foliage. But the reason why this New England geranium is very, very special to me is because I had a deacon and his wife give this to me back in the 90s. Whenever I lived in Cox's Creek, Kentucky, I had a deacon there by the name of Buzz Davis and his wife Jenny, and I was visiting with them one afternoon in their home and saw this beautiful flower in their landscape. And I said, I began complimenting them on this beautiful flower. Well, the next thing I know, I have a start of this flower. They gave me a start of this flower, and ever since probably 1996, I have kept this flower going, and I enjoy watching the blooms, and it blooms throughout the entire summer season, but then also remembering those that I have crossed paths with in life makes it so much more meaningful. Also, another new addition to the Frazier landscape this year is this garden planter. One of my members, Marty Gillespie, her son-in-law built this planter. In fact, he sells them for a living there. And I saw that he had given her one, I think maybe for Mother's Day, and then I placed an order for one as well. And so at the particular time, I didn't know what I was going to use it for, but I knew I would use it for something. Probably thought more on vegetables, but I changed that just a little bit. And this is just like I said, a garden planter here, and it's about 4 feet long, and the sides of this planter are cedar, so they're going to hang around for a long time. Of course, the top here, you know, we've got some great craftsmanship, good woodmanship here, and I have put a coating on them to help preserve this wood, but also it is great to garden with. Now, like I say, I have placed strawberries in here. I have put some strawberry plants in here, and we're looking forward to them growing throughout the season. Some of them are blooming right now, so they're going to be producing berries, and there's a few berries in here that are growing currently. And the one thing that I like about it, we can come out here and pick berries right off the side of the house and enjoy that. But then also, you know, if you've got back problems or you can't stoop down or various things like that, I encourage you to use these containers. There is so much you can do in containers. And as we think here, you know, think of the depth that, you know, this is several inches here, and I have filled this full with potting soil and topsoil and things like that, and putting the right kind of growing medium in here, and so I can be able to produce more fruit or produce more berries, I guess you would say here. But one thing that I did do, since this is large, now you know if, it would probably take 4 or 5 of those large sacks of potting soil or other soil to fill this up. So in the bottom, whenever I order things and it comes in boxes and things, most of the time it has styrofoam around that, and I will keep that styrofoam. I'll just throw it up in the garage, throw it in a place and store it there, because whenever I before I put the soil in, I put all of that styrofoam down in the bottom. Now it takes up space, so that means less gardening soil that I have to spend money on, but then also with styrofoam, it helps also for moisture control, and so the moisture goes into that styrofoam, and so it's kind of a dual purpose. Not only is it's saving me money on potting soil or topsoil, but then also it is moisture control, and so we are looking at that. But I encourage that. Of course, you know, when you buy one, you always want another one, and as we're looking at this here, we put some of our strawberries in this. Of course, we have the rest of them, they are out there in the garden. But this is just really something that is neat. And of course, one thing that you do have to do on a regular basis, you have to water this, and you have to water this often. And you go by and just kind of check how things are drying. You say, well, I'm looking up here, how do I know? Well, I always just like sticking my finger down into the soil and checking things out, especially as we think of the first knuckle there that we have. If it is dry from there, then I need to water, and so that's how that I do that. Well, here we definitely need to water this today and make sure that it has enough moisture. But these are so many alternatives. So many alternatives to gardening, because most people don't have 5 gardens like me. Most people don't even have a garden plot. But with container garden, you can do so many things. I've seen tomatoes growing in one like this. I've seen cucumbers growing in ones like this. I've seen flowers growing in one like this. And so just so many things that you can do. So don't think that you cannot do gardening, because you can do gardening in a planter or a large pot and just do so many great and wonderful things. Okay, we want to kind of enter into some of our gardening updates of earlier videos that we have done this year. If you remember correctly, back, I don't know, it was maybe end of January, I showed you these pot of onions. These are candy onions. I had planted these on the 23rd day of December. Well, as we've moved on, here it is January, February, March, April, May. This is 5 months later, and wanted to check up on the onions. Now, they have done okay. Now, I have learned a few things about growing onions in the middle of winter. These onions need a lot of water. And one of the things that could help them a lot more is for me to water them more than I have had here. But then also we're dealing with 5 months here, and you know they're doing well and everything, but maybe it's not something that I will probably do this coming winter, because it has taken so long for these to grow. And you know, I've placed these in a number of pots and things, and now I need the pots for my flowers and things, so it wasn't a kind of a good idea to plant these in this container unless you're not going to use the container for anything else. And so they're doing okay. I'm satisfied with them, but I think I could do a better job with them if I was to do them ever again. Just some points to learn as we're moving along in the garden. Also, another update is some months back on another gardening show, we planted these sweet potatoes. We put these in this blue pot here. That's a pot that I was not going to use for this coming year. And I lined it with sweet potatoes, if you remember correctly, and then we covered them up with some potting soil here, and we have been watering them. Well, now, as you see, these fresh new potato slips are coming on. Now, these sweet potato slips is what I will use here in a little while. Usually I like to plant my sweet potatoes around the first week of June, and so I will take these, I will put a lot of water in here to make sure it's good and moist, and then I will pull off these slips that are here, and then I will go and transplant them here in the garden. Now, these sweet potatoes were some that I had left over last year, and rather than pitch them and just throw them into the trash, we have been able to use them, and now I have some nice fresh sweet potato slips, and that will produce me more sweet potatoes for this coming fall. So we encourage you. There's a lot of things that we can do, and it's cost savers and various things, but I've also enjoyed watching these new sweet potato slips to sprout and to grow, and then I will be planting them in the garden. In one of our earlier shows, we pruned this knockout rose bush, and I just kind of wanted to show you some things about this pruning. And like I said, we pruned it back pretty seriously, and we wanted to let you know, of course, it has been blooming now for a few days, and some of the blooms are starting now to fade, but it still is very, very beautiful. And here, this was another gift. This was another gift by a church member that I had sometime years ago. They gave this to me, and we were able to plant it, and we have enjoyed it. But notice, it looks great, it looks healthy. Now, I did notice yesterday that I do have some bugs, some insects that are working on it, because I'm starting to see some holes in the leaves, but the leaves look got a beautiful color to them, got a strong green tint to them, dark green tint. This plant looks very, very healthy, even though I pruned it very, very seriously back in the last of winter into that as we were moving into spring. So we just want to kind of show you this knockout rose, and it's, like I say, it's been blooming. It still has a few more buds, and so we're very, very excited about it. And here we have some new growth that is coming on. But then also we want to show, as we move down this way, I'm going to show you one that I did not prune and what it looks like. Now, here's one down here that I did not touch at all this year. I did not prune at all. Now, I will say that there is more than one that is growing in this rose bush. This is just not all of a red knockout rose. And of course, as you see, it's got very tall. It's almost as tall as I am. Of course, there is also something else growing in here. This is called the yellow rose of Texas, and that was given to me by another church member. And so it has been growing in there, in which I really don't mind because it gives whenever these roses were blooming here early on, the yellow rose of Texas was blooming too, and so it just kind of made it very, very nice. But notice there's a big difference in the size of the leaves, the one that I pruned and the one that I didn't prune. Smaller leaves here. If I had taken this down like I did on the pink one, we would have seen a lot better leaves, probably a lot better looking, healthier of a plant. But we just kind of wanted to show the comparison and contrast between the two. Well, we want to step into the garden for a little bit, and we maybe have to step softly here. This year, the gardening experience is a new experience every year for us as gardeners. And it seems like the older I get, the more different things that I have to deal with. You know, our seasons have changed so much. And even this season, you know, we had a pretty decent April. In fact, we were able to work the soil on occasion in April and move things along pretty good. I even remember on our notorious Tater Day, which we did get to have this year, I planted green beans and I planted sweet corn and a few other things there. The sweet corn did come up, but whenever we settled into May, it was a different ball game. And we had remember the night of May the 8th, we had a cold night. It got down to 36 degrees here. And you know, I had probably 50 tomato plants out. I had green beans growing. I had squash growing. I had cucumbers growing. I had all those things were up and growing on May the 8th. Now where I am standing right here, these were not here. These were still in my greenhouse. All these that you see here are seeds that I planted in regards to these tomatoes and things. And there's probably 100 tomato plants scattered out, all kinds of different kinds. My favorite ones, this first row here, I believe these are Better Boys. Are these Better Boys? Yes. This is an entire of Better Boys. Now, here's a story in these Better Boys. I had had the seed for a long time, a very, very long time. In fact, on the seed packet, it said the year 2002. 2002. 18 years ago, these seeds were packaged and sold, and I have kept them and kept them in the freezer. And so I took them out and I planted them, and I was able to, I think there's usually probably in that packet, there's about 30 seeds, and I know there's probably 17 in this row, so I know over half germinated and sprouted, and so I have planted them. So 2 lessons there. You know, you see an old pack of seeds, even if they have been not in the freezer for 3 or 4 years, go ahead and see if they will come up, because that's just what I did. I put them in a pan with some soil medium in there, just broadcast them, covered up, and watered them, and see what they would do. And these begin to grow, and so we're very, very excited in seeing these. But these date back to 2002, and the seed was still viable, still viable. I even had in this row there's some San Marzanos that were back in probably 2013 that I thought, well, I don't know if they will do any good. Hey, I got a very, very good stand of them. Probably got 30. I think they all germinated, they all sprouted, even though that was back in 2013. But to kind of give you an idea of what I have going on here, and I have some German tomatoes here that are growing in this row here. You can tell, you can look at the leaf of some of these, like this German. I have one here. Let me see, which one was this one? This is a peach tomato. I've never grown a peach tomato. Don't know what it's like, but in my travels around, I picked up this one particular variety of tomato called a peach tomato. So as we get into the garden season, we'll give you some updates on these. These are definitely updates for that of the future. Also in this row, the Belgium Giant, and that is one of my favorites, one of the best tasting tomatoes that are there. And then Carolina Golds. I've got some yellow tomatoes that are there on the back. On this row here, give you an idea, these are Rocky Tops. This is a new variety, and this will be the first year that I have ever grown a Rocky Top, and I think I have a dozen plants of these Rocky Tops. And then following up with them, I have Cherokee Purple. And even though Cherokee Purple is not a very, very pretty tomato at all, but man, it has a great taste. Of course, Cherokee Purple, Belgium Giant, these that taste so well, guess what are they? Yes, you got that right. They are heirloom tomatoes. You don't see as much production in heirloom sometimes, but they have a great taste. And I encourage you that if you have not tried a Belgium Giant, if you have not tried a Cherokee Purple, try that at your farmers markets this season, and just tell me what you think whenever you see me out and about. But these are just some of these that we have growing on here. Of course, here's another one. Here's another modern tomato. It's called an Arkansas Traveler, and I was introduced to these whenever I lived in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and I have a pretty good sized row of Arkansas Travelers, and use them in tomato juice and things. Then this one here's the old standby. Beginning from here on back, the old Rutgers. This is Rutgers and Jetstars. Those were your 2 main primarily canning tomatoes here in West Kentucky, Jetstar and Rutgers. And so I've got a row of Rutgers that are here. And then I was at one place and they were giving tomato plants away. And so I got 2 tomato plants, and these are called the Mr. Stripeys. Mr. Stripey, my Mariana's husband, Morgan, he has a grandmother that lives in Abington, Virginia, and this is her favorite tomato, Mr. Stripey. And so Granny Smith, if we can have means of getting these Mr. Stripeys up to Granny Smith in Abington, Virginia, we will do so. But then also put out another row of Rutgers because we wanted to have plenty for canning. And as we know, all of us are going to be doing some canning this year of what we're dealing with afraid of food shortages and various things. We're going to be looking at that, and so I'm definitely going to make sure that the pantry in the Frazier household is full of things that I have grown in the garden. For this part of the gardening segment, Denise brought a question to me about a crepe myrtle, Now this one has been here for several years. Now this is the white crepe myrtle, and for our area, the white is what I call the hardiest of all the crepe myrtles. Now we have some beautiful colors. Now I have one in my front yard that is a dwarf, and it's kind of a reddish color and got beautiful blooms on it. But as you see here, this crepe myrtle is very, very slow in putting out foliage for this year. But now you've got to remember, our spring has been unusual. We've had a lot of cool nights. In fact, until just the last, 10 days have we seen any significant temperature at all. And so I think probably this crepe myrtle, along with Denise has ones doing the very, very same thing, the foliage is not coming out. What are you going to do? I'm not going to do anything right now. I've got plenty of time. I'm going to see, we do have some foliage that is coming out down here at the bottom. I'm going to see what this does. Now, there might not be any foliage that comes back out on these at all right? And if it does not, then throughout the season, I'll give this another 30 days, may even give it 45 days before I will do anything at all. I could even wait 2 months if I notice that the growth is going to be coming from that of the bottom. If it is coming from the bottom, it'll be fine. It will be fine because, as you will know, it grows very aggressively, all right? And this is one that I'll have to trim a couple of times in the year because, it grows taller than my head, or taller than I can reach. So right now, just be patient, just kind of wait and see how things go. And then if none of this has foliage on it, I will be trimming it back so that I give this new growth plenty of room to grow. On the night of May the 8th and the early morning of May the 9th, this is where you found me in my garden. We had temperatures that night to dip down to 36 degrees. Well, as you will know, it will frost at 38 degrees. Well, I got up before 5 o'clock the morning of May the 9th to find out that there was a blanket of frost over everything on my lawn. The night before, I had watered things down because water is 72 degrees. I got up before daylight and began watering. I started watering at 5 o'clock, trying to wash off all the frost that was on the plants. I turned around again because at 6 o'clock, the temperatures dipped a little bit. In fact, I believe it went down to 35 degrees. Well, that bothered me. I got out here again and I watered everything down at 6 o'clock. Then at 6:20, I was greatly concerned of what was going to happen here with the plant. So I came out and watered everything off again 3 times. Of course, it was muddy out here to begin with, but I wanted to wash off as much of the frost that I could, but then also putting 72 degrees temperature on these plants. Now, they survived. Now, some of it bleached the leaves out white because of the frigid temperatures there. Others, such as these squash and things, to me, they look like they have been stunted a little bit. Now, stunted is okay. I will wait patiently for them as they grow, as they come out of this stunting. But then also, I've had some other squash that's already producing squash, but they're producing very, very small squash. Why is that? I think it's because of that cold night of May the 8th and May the 9th. So while I was waiting for these squash to produce and make regular sized, nice garden squash, I'm going to have to go and pull every one of them off, and they're very, very small, but I think that's what I need to do because I don't think they're going to grow anymore. I'll check with them and I'll give you an update. But gardens can survive. Like I say, I had never seen it frost before on May the 8th and May the 9th. but it did. That's the first time probably in my gardening experience that I had ever seen that. I was in full force, had things covered up, but I had too many things out to cover everything up. And that's whenever I started watering things down. I had other gardeners calling me what they needed to do, and I shared with them my plan of what I was going to do, and I did not lose anything. But now it has been stunted a little bit, and I'm waiting for it to get out of that stunt mode and to grow and produce the vegetables that I like. I hope that you've enjoyed our gardening program for today. We've talked about flowers, we've talked about containers, we've even talked about a crepe myrtle that we're trying to figure out what's going to happen to this crepe myrtle. But then also we wanted to update you on that serious frost that we had on May 8th and May the 9th. And as you look across here, we have expanded this area of our garden. We have a lot of flowers that are growing here. We have different things that are growing. We had all kinds of vegetables that are growing, so we'll look forward to bringing you updates from this garden. It's so good to be with you. Enjoy this summer. Get outside, do a little gardening. I don't care if you even just put out a container or two, but watch something grow. Take care, and God bless.